One of the most famous passages in the Old Testament goes like this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Jesus Christ would later identify these verses as the first and great commandment, the most important thing for a Christian to be doing. Well, great. That's good to know. But what does it mean? Heart, soul, strength? In English, these are all fuzzy concepts that can mean a lot of different things. So let's take a look at the Hebrew from which they were translated. The word for heart comes from the Hebrew word LEBAB, which refers to the inner man, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, everything under the surface that makes you, you. Now, the word for strength comes from the Hebrew word meod, which deals with more the intensity of an action. And soul? The word for soul comes from the word nephesh, which roughly translates to being or creature. Now that can seem confusing because many churches teach that the soul is some sort of immortal essence that lives within the human body. They contend that you have a soul and that when your physical body dies, your soul is whisked away to heaven or hell. That's not what the Bible says, though. While it's true that you are a soul, the word soul refers strictly to a living, breathing being, not an immortal essence, not an immortal anything. When the Bible talks about the creation of the earth, we read that after God created the first man, man became a living being. Again, the root word there is nephesh, a soul. Man became a living soul, a living creature. Nephesh is the same word used to refer to the sea creatures, the land animals, the birds of the earth, the birds of the air, and every creeping thing. There's a verse in Leviticus that tells us the life of the flesh is in the blood. The root word behind life? That's right, nephesh again. If the soul is immortal, well, this doesn't make sense. The life of the soul is in the blood, but that's what it says. No blood, no life, no soul. You take away the blood and the living creature stops being a living creature. It's now a dead creature, a dead soul. God made the point even clearer when he inspired the prophet Ezekiel to proclaim this. The soul who sins shall die. What happens to the soul? What happens to the nephesh, the living being that sins? It dies. It ceases to exist. Eternity isn't even a question here. There's not a word in that whole passage about eternal torment and agony. King Solomon was inspired to write that the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. And later he writes, there's no work or device or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going. You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You are a living, breathing soul that won't be living and breathing forever. So let's then go back to our original question about the greatest commandment. What does it mean to love God with all your heart, soul, and strength? Your heart is who you are. Your soul is what you are. And your strength is what you're capable of doing. Loving God with all those things means loving Him with the entirety of our being, not just in word, but in action, knowing that our time here on the earth is precious, it's limited, and that we must use it wisely. Okay, so we've answered that question, but we've raised a few more along the way. We learned that you are a soul, all souls die, and the dead know nothing. So what happens when you die? When you as a living being, when you stop living, what happens to you? If the dead know nothing, are the atheists right? Do you simply stop existing? Is death the end? Those are good questions. Those are important questions, and we're going to answer all of them. But first, we're going to take a look at one place Jesus Christ promised none of us will ever go when we die: heaven. The Spirit in man plays an important role in what happens after death. To learn about that role, click next to continue watching this series. For further reading, be sure to download our free booklet, The Last Enemy: What Really Happens After Death.